It was the first time Austin saw that an actual body went missing in an area where everybody had looked because they had found his car and they couldn't find him. But when they did find him, the recovery of his body did not match what the medical examiner stated had happened.
This is your nautical lantern on the dangerous seas of darkness. Let's push off from the placid shore of the status quo and explore what's beyond the horizon. I am your host, BT, and this is Truth and Shadow, your podcast of the supernatural.
There's a lake in Austin, Texas. A place where the city's skyline reflects on calm waters, where joggers and families come to escape the chaos of urban life. But beneath the surface of Lady Bird Lake lies a mystery that's anything but tranquil. Over the years, unexplained deaths have begun to accumulate. Young men, seemingly healthy, found drowned in its waters. Some say it's a tragic coincidence. The authorities claim that there's no pattern, no cause for alarm. But the people who live here, they whisper a different story. Some believe there's a killer moving silently through the night. Others speak of something darker, an unseen force. Something sinister that draws its victims beneath the surface, leaving behind no trace but fear and suspicion. And I've spent years looking into what others would dismiss as fiction. But I've come to learn that the truth often hides where we least expect it. So what is happening at Lady Bird Lake? A series of tragic accidents? Or something else? Something the world isn't ready to believe in yet? I'm BT, and welcome to Truth and Shadow, where belief collides with skepticism, and every answer leads to new questions.
So imagine a pattern hidden in plain sight, connecting seemingly unrelated tragedies nationwide. And near each site, a mocking emblem, a smiley face taunting us with its eerie simplicity. Is it the work of a network of killers or something far more sinister? Enter Nick and Lisa, seasoned investigators with the knack of unraveling the most enigmatic mysteries, and together, they'll embark on a journey to decipher the clues, navigate the shadows, and expose the hidden truths behind these chilling deaths. Nick, Lisa, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So I wanted to start looking into the Smiley Face Killer phenomena, and I thought that I would start by talking to you guys about like Lady Bird Lake, and if we can get some background. Before I do that, though, can I get you guys to introduce yourselves and where people can find you?
Okay, yeah, sure. So I am Lisa Solis. I am a co-host on the Occult Rejects with Nick, and we started doing kind of true crime into looking into some of these phenomenons, and one particular is the Smiley Face Killers, particularly Austin, because I lived in Austin, and we kind of just have latched onto this because it's extremely interesting. But so that's me in a nutshell, and I very much enjoy looking into this.
And yeah, I'm Nick from the Occult Rejects. And that's, podcast that Lisa co-hosts with me. And I do have a kind of like a crew of other people that just constantly rotate and use for different types of topics and stuff. And you can find that on BitChute, Rumble, YouTube, Twitter. The lives will go on there if you follow the Twitter account. And where else? And all major podcasts as well. So, yeah, check out BitChute, Rumble, YouTube, and all major podcasts.
Well, if you don't mind, I'll go ahead and kind of insert my 2 cents. So basically, you have this lake, right? And it's a dammed up lake called the Colorado that starts like way up into the panhandle of Texas and then extends all the way into the Gulf. And this one section of the lake is what they call it, is basically the reservoir of Austin. It's where majority of the water comes from for the residents of Austin. And everything's kind of centered around the downtown, nightlife, walking, jogging, kayaking. I mean, it's literally the center, the heart of Austin, Texas. And if you start looking into these actual phenomenon of the smiley face, it'll take you all the way back to 2008. And there is a victim that doesn't particularly fit the smiley face killer MO, and I'll get into the MO here in a bit just to kind of give your listeners what that kind of entails. But you do have this one victim back in 2008, and it's a very peculiar story in that he was a teacher, professor, pro-Palestinian. I believe he was doing organizational work for pro-Palestinian type work. And somehow he had been visited by the FBI and his house had been raided several times prior to his body being discovered in the lake. And I think for me, in essence, and I like to bring him up because for me, it was the first time I think Austin saw that an actual body went missing in an area where everybody had looked because they had found his car adjacent to the area and they couldn't find him. But when they did find him, the recovery of his body did not match what the medical examiner stated had happened. And so when they found his body, they found the body wrapped up in duct tape all around his head, all around the wrist area, and then his feet bound. And it was in the front of his body as well. So it wasn't, something that you could easily get away with in terms of doing it for yourself. And when the body was recovered and it was taken over to the ME, it was quickly ruled a suicide. And carte blanche, hands washed, no investigation. And I believe that some of the other, I guess when they went to go prepare the body because he was Muslim, the actual imam was saying that he had never seen a body so bruised and battered. And yet for someone to claim that it was a suicide or accidental drowning, rather, that it just didn't agree. And so then you fast forward to about 2010, you start to see bodies kind of turning up here and there. No real identification, no real name, no real blip on any kind of radar. And it's really not until 2012 that you actually get an actual name to a body that was discovered in Ladybird Lake. And then the MOs start. And the MOs are basically, if you're kind of familiar with the victimology, is that you have a male, they're always males, and they're between the ages of 20 to 40. Some have deviated into the late 40s, but if you look at these males that are in the late 40s, they could pass for 30s. I mean, their body fat composition is almost identical. That's another thing that I think people fail to mention. If you look at their body fat percentage, it's almost the same throughout. If not, give or take age or give or take, activity level, because you have some that were highly educated and kind of made up for their not fitting the body fat percentage. But one of the mainstays of these victims is that they're always last seen in a particular area, like a bar or some sort of nightlife, where they've been consuming too much alcohol, or they claim to be consuming too much alcohol. And usually what the MO is saying is that they were drugged or somehow they had consumed too much alcohol, according to the police report. But you go back and you look at the autopsy, or you go back and you talk to their friends that were there, and they were like, no, they just had one drink. But then all of a sudden they were acting as if they were severely intoxicated. And then they will be somewhat disappeared. And then when they go to look for these people, they're always found in almost the exact same locations that an area was heavily searched. So you start to see, and then when the body is recovered, the ME always rules it accidental drowning. Even though on a lot of these autopsies, you'll see lung weight that's underweight. So not even normal lung weight, you're seeing underweight. So to kind of, think about it, you're like, well, if someone drowns, shouldn't they have water in their lungs? The lung itself should be heavier, and you're not seeing that. So for it to be ruled an accidental drowning almost doesn't fit the actual, like, what really happened. So you're starting to see the fudging or the actual inconsistencies with the reporting of the ME, as going back to the 2008 one, where you clearly see this is not what happened, but yet the ME says this, PD says this, and now the media is saying this, and then it's whitewashed. Next story. I think that's pretty much it, right? Kind of in a nutshell.
Well, to tell you the truth, I have to give credit where credit is due. This whole topic was actually Lisa's idea, because she's the one who was following this. Yeah, when she told me about it, she had mentioned it, and then months later she brought it back up, and I was like, yeah, you know what, that's a great idea. Send me over, she'll send me a link of her Google documents and notes. She sent me over graphs of 30 people, and I was just like, yeah, no, this is definitely something she has really been into. So just to preface that, it's just I really didn't know much about this stuff at all. She had told me about it, and I'll be honest, when I was like, yeah, let's do it, I did go on YouTube and actually search to see if there was anything out there, and there was one other person that, since she's mentioned it, put something out. But it definitely, she honestly told me about it before that shit was even out, if you look at the timeline of when it was released. So I was like, all right, let me check this out, because there's only one thing that I could even find that was talking about it. And I looked into it, and I was like, yo, something is really weird about this. And then I was like, you know what, I'm going to start looking into just certain things, ways I normally look into stuff. I'll start looking into is there any weird financial or weird ties with people in the police department or the bars or the music places, venues. So once I started kind of doing that, and even looking into the secret societies around in that area, it definitely to me made it look like it was very very easy to pull off organized crime. And there is also, I have noticed, if we get into it, there is even plenty of times of either drug busts that was a BDO, which is pretty much like GHB, a date rape drug. In that area, there was one time a place that was pumping out large amounts of it, wholesale selling it. They got caught. There was chicks that have been busted, known for drugging, presenting as fake Ubers, drugging people and robbing them and doing stuff to them. And that drug being made to do it with is very close and in Austin. So you just have a lot of weird, just weird things going around in that area that almost makes it a perfect petri dish for this to happen. Anyway.
Perfect. That's a perfect scenario, petri dish for it. And I forgot, I'm glad you mentioned that, Nick, and that whole GHB thing is that they present the classical being drugged type behavior. Yet when they go to have their autopsy done, they say they don't find GHB in it or, date rape drug or whatever, but they will see a combination of an antihistamine and a methamphetamine in almost every single one, which kind of translates over to BDO or something like that. But then they'll say there isn't one. And some of the families will end up collecting samples and sending it to a second opinion or a second ME, and they will find GHB. So the first ME didn't find anything, but when you send it off, they're like, yeah, we did find it. So you're starting to see a clear pattern of ME's inconsistencies with reporting, if they even do the autopsy. That's another one. Many of these MEs will not even do the autopsy and say no, they drowned because they were drinking. And story closed. Case closed. So it continues to show these inconsistencies with a PD and ME and what have you. And I think being in Austin, I think was another one. Is had somebody told me about this, I don't think I'd believe it. But to see how PD and media were like, no, you're not understanding. It's people getting drunk and just falling in the water. And it's just, it's more than that. You see it, but yet to have them say that, it's unnerving. For sure.
You know what I found interesting covering this topic with you? We got to end up having the chance to talk to a victim's relative. And even in that case, seeing the things that we were told about things that were like kind of like not done to him or the way he was found, and kind of almost like what was even like mentioned in paperwork, doesn't even like seem right. Like I'm not trying to like get too conspiratorial. Maybe it's just sloppy work, but like even there, you almost start to see kind of a funny disconnect about like what's reality and what was put on paper, or just things as just like, how do you just ignore this? It's just so weird.
Because like you had mentioned this, like the first case, if you go back to 2008, you said he was bound in duct tape, Muslim, and he had been speaking to the FBI. Was that before or after? Okay. Yeah, see, that's curious in itself. And then the majority of the rest of these cases typically are white males, right? But this isn't the normal. I mean, because I've heard that there's these cases are all over the world, anyways, and they're getting all over the world, so they're not just a specific ethnographic group anymore. But yeah.
Well, so the FBI had raided his house twice, and they took everything before he ended up in the river.
Well, you know what I think. This is just my opinion. I'll try to say it real quick. When it comes to the Smiley Face Killers, and I'm glad, like you're saying, like this isn't a normal person. I think, unfortunately, what we're probably seeing with these types of cases is multiple groups that are just basically underground organized crime that understand a certain way to dispose of people. So you might have, like, in my opinion, I think the ones in Austin, Texas might actually be more geared to specific people in tech and energy. But who's to say that, like, we're seeing other people that are more athletic for a different reason? You know what I'm saying? Like, I do, and that's a different group of organized crime that are handling a different, paycheck this week,
Right,
like,
right.
Who knows? So I do think, like, when it comes to organized crime using people and bodies of water, you're going to have, I think, more than you're going to have a few different types of, I guess, ratios to go by of why those are victims, because it's different groups for different reasons. That's my
agreed. 100% agree with you on that. It's almost like it's like a call goes out for a specific type of guy, and they are acquired or something or another.
Like, we've seen some cases where it's like, if they were on the down low, that would almost make it seem like that's a commonality between some groups of people. So it's like, for all there could be so many different, that could literally just be somebody who's like sick and wants to kill people. You know what I'm saying? You're just picking those types of people if you have no idea. You know what I'm saying? There's definitely, I definitely think there's so many different criterias that can end up with you being found in a body of water.
And sometimes you'll see it happen more so within between February and April. And then you'll see it, at least in Austin, the way it had been showing up was between February and April or February and June. And then you'll see it pick back up either August through November and December, or maybe September through December, but it's usually spring and spring and fall. And so it almost gives you the illusion of like, oh, when people are back in school, because, Austin is UT, the university. And it's almost like, well, maybe they're picking out college students, but a majority of them are already graduated, and they are already in a profession itself and have a very successful career ahead of them, or they're currently occupying. The other thing is what we've kind of realized, that a lot of, in Austin especially, this is festival time. It's when it's not like scorched earth hot in Austin. And I'm sure if you went here recently, you're like, my God, it's hot. And so that in spring and fall, it's the best time to visit Austin because the temperatures are tolerable and it's festival time. So with festivals, you have so many people coming in, you have so much visitor, the revenues, skyrocketing because everybody's going down to the bars, everybody's going out and being out and partying and what have you. And with some of these victims, a majority of them are not Austin residents. They came in to visit and unfortunately never left. So yeah, that's another MO, is that a majority of them, and they're highly educated. I forgot to mention that as well. I'm sure I'll be spitting off more MOs as I remember them, but they are highly educated and in engineering or software, computer. But I don't mean like, oh, they got a degree in engineering and that's it. No, they were doing something really big. They were doing, really cool stuff. And somehow we're taken out. It's like they're picking the best of the best with these kids. And
one of them we covered works for the DoD, right?
Yeah. So one of the bodies that was recovered, the one that you were talking about, the inconsistencies with his autopsy, well, all of them do have really. He was creating software and had his software actually contracted with the DoD. And he was looking at voice to skull. He was looking at AI software, what have you, and they were getting ready to sell some of that software to a huge company out of Australia. But he had several security clearances that were very high up on the chart in terms of confidentiality and whatever. So in my mind, you're like, "What? You took this person out. How are people not questioning what they did to him?" And even in the autopsy, in talking to his sister, she talks about how there were puncture wounds in his brain. And so you're like, wow, this guy was really smart. He was doing confidential stuff. And yet you see evidence of potential probing of the brain. I mean, I don't know. It's one of those where you kind of have to start scratching your head of where is this going? What is happening when they do take these men? But the other one you were talking about, the kid here recently, they took a kid and his dad was actually like high up on the main actual like DOD, yes, but also he like worked for DARPA. He was a high ranking person for DARPA. And then I believe his current status was something of like he was the actual, I'm trying to think of it. He was like undersecretary, or right under the undersecretary of like naval intelligence or national intelligence. It's the actual umbrella that looks over CIA, NSA, and all the other intelligence agencies. And so you're thinking, okay, they took this guy's kid. How is this dad not looking into what's happening with this? Surely he would know, because he has an arsenal of intelligence under his belt. What's going on here?
Well, those people should be able to tell you what's going on over in Iran right now.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, the things that people consider important. I mean, it wasn't too long ago. I think it was April 16th this year. We had the most recent one, and I was not directly following that because the way the news develops, I kind of give it a couple of days, then I read up, and then I let it go for a little bit. But it was April 16th this year where somebody was found, a guy was found in the water. And that one had some tie-ins. And do you know anything that's kind of odd with that one?
Well, If that's the one that I'm thinking, they haven't released who he was, right? His name or anything like that. And most of the ones that have been found, because there has been a few more that have been found in the water here recently, in the month of June, but no names have been released as to what. And so the autopsy or anything like that is bare minimum. From what I have heard is that it's just been a recovery and it was accidental drowning and that was it. That's pretty much what, and I mean, there's speculation online. I mean, you could go onto these blogs and they have speculation, but I can't substantiate any of that because I have not seen, like an actual report from someone that said, look, this is what it is. But the oddness of it is just that it happened in an area where they were looking prior to, again, same thing. And then was found. It just, it's, and they talk about, you look into some of this forensic stuff and you're like, okay, so if a body drowned, how long does it take to resurface? How long, what is the lividity on it? What is this? What is that? Most of these bodies are, most of the times when drownings happen, your body's face down, right? Most of these bodies are faced up. So that already in of itself is odd. The lividity, and that's, where the blood pools when a person dies, is inconsistent with the drowning. So that's also another thing that is inconsistent with it as well. A majority of these victims don't look like they have been in the water that long. Usually if you're in the water, say your body drowns, and then it takes anywhere between 3 to 7 days for it to rise back up. Surely there's decomposition from being in the water. Most of the bodies found do not even show decomposition past 3 days. So that already negates that whole thing.
And the direction of the bodies.
I'm not saying all of them, and also the direction, absolutely.
So, I mean, the thing is since, I don't know, I think the one that happened April 16th, I haven't seen any new ones, but it fits in the time frame that you're talking about of missing persons. And then 4 days prior, there was another body found. And so far in like 22 months, we're talking 12 bodies found in Lady Bird Lake. And many of them are being ruled in the same kind of thing. They fall in the water and then they drowned. And it's like, it doesn't make much sense to me as a swimmer to just fall in the water and then know that I could just stand up and be fine, because that's what these areas are. These areas are just deep enough you could stand and not drown. And then the other thing is you fall in the water, and then if you're drowning, you don't like stay face up. You kind of,
and and you bring up a good point in that it's it's one of those things to where they rule it quickly with these bodies that are found in the water. But I'll give you another example. They found a body near City Hall, not in the water, adjacent to the water. But quickly they ruled it a gunshot wound and suicide. And then they went heart attack, and then they said suicide. Yet somebody leaked a photograph of the actual body, and I looked at it. I didn't see a gunshot wound. I didn't see an exit wound. The victim had no clothes on, just his underwear. I don't know of anyone who has a heart attack actually takes the time to take off his clothes and position himself the way he was positioned in that sense. It doesn't make any sense. And so for them to quickly say heart attack, and with some of these transient people, you can tell the wear on their face that they are transient. There wasn't a whole lot of wear on his face. Like, you could tell. I think he was even a cancer survivor. And you could tell that this was not what that was. But yet the media quickly ruled it that. And when it didn't rule it that, it ruled it something else. And then you never heard about it again.
And for a majority of these, there's usually they'll find like a smiley face associated with that.
Yes. I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah. What kind of connection do we have with that? I mean, what can we draw from the idea of this particular image? Well,
and so, Nick can talk about the occultism on that. From what I understood, From what I've heard is, and what I've seen is that it's either prior to the body showing up or shortly thereafter the body shows up, that an actual graffiti of some sort of smiley face similarity is found near the location of where the body is found. And according to Gannon, the guy who wrote the book on this, each place, like Austin, like it's also happening in Chicago, it's also happening in Ohio, it's also happening out in New York. All these places, Wisconsin's another one, Michigan, all these places have their specific calling card type of graffiti, almost as a way to say this gang did it, or this entity did it, or this group of people did it type thing. I've never seen what is a specific to each of the cities, and I think that's something that is only the purview of a detective or something, because they don't want to release that. But I personally have taken pictures of graffiti there in Austin. And you do see smiley face. I even took a picture of the word smile. Shortly thereafter, a body was found. The word smile appeared on all the bridges down in Ladyburg. The problem with some of photographing this stuff is that you have a group, they're part of the Austin Alliance or the Trails or whatever. They go around and they literally spray paint over all the graffiti every Wednesday, I think, or once a week for sure. And so if you didn't take a picture of it, you didn't take a picture of it. You didn't catch it. You know what I mean? And so I wonder if this group knows that they do that. And so they spray paint it right before, and then it gets covered over, and then you never really saw it. But there is an actual MO with that, is that you will see some sort of smiley face spray painted graffiti in and around the area close to the time frame of when the body was left.
And as for occult groups, I mean, Austin obviously is going to be a hub of several different types. And so I'm wondering if there isn't like a Nine Angles angle.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I could actually see right now all the places that are out there, because I did look into that first because I was interested. Believe it or not, when we end up, my opinion, when it comes down to any of these secret societies, my opinion, I actually think it's more possibly the Rotary Club, the Lions Club, and maybe some other stuff. But you have the Scarlet Woman Lodge, OTO, is not too far from there. That's out in Austin. You have the Hill City Masonic Lodge. You have the Ben Hur Shrine Temple, which is Shriners, that's Masons. You have that is out there too. You have, this is interesting, and I do wonder about this, especially for some like these tech people. Like, I don't know if maybe they might actually be interested in like the people's DNA or something. I don't know. But you do have Austin Animal Center, which does work with Best Friends. Now, that is associated with the Process Church. You do have a Church of Scientology out there, which would go hand in hand with Process Church and Best Friends. The Elks Lodge, you do have them out there. You have the Austin Moose Lodge as well. You have the Knights of Columbus. And you do have the Lions Club. You have the Rotary Club, and you do have another Lions Club. So you have all of those places too, which I do find interesting that you even have all those places out there. And at one point, I think it's actually Lisa really kind of brought this up. Wasn't there Temple of Set people out there? There used to be a Temple of Set out there, and that did close.
So, yeah. Yeah, the Temple of Set was out there in Austin. And one of the things, I'm glad Nick literally named all of them. They're all located close to the river. Their actual temples and lodges are peppered all along the river. And that's high dollar property. I mean, that's high dollar real estate. Nobody's, just, oh, this place was open, I'm going to rent it. No, that doesn't happen there. So that's you already know that has to come with some sort of high financial ties. But the Temple is Set, yes, they had a lodge there, and then it closed. I want to say it closed around COVID, and it never reopened. But I want to say it was around COVID. I'm not entirely 100% on that. But you do have 2 ex-high priests that have been long-term residents of Austin. And so, It's one of those things that Austin must be somewhat of an allure or an attraction to them. One of the things that Nick kind of actually brought up, because we had done work on this and I never really made the correlation until after, but the entire estate, or not, the written and publications of Aleister Crowley is in Austin. And you know what I mean? And so you have all of this kind of tangential occultism interplaying within Austin itself. And you have, Austin's kind of always had that occultism to it. And a lot of the whole Silicon Valley-esque people, they're well known for being occultists. And a lot of the ties for Silicon Valley has ties into occultism, or history at least. And most of them moved to Austin. And I will say that once I like to push this theory, because I believe that's probably one of the theories. But when one of the festivals that occurs in Austin is called South by Southwest, and it initially started as a music festival, to where anybody who was anybody in music would go and play there, and you could either get picked up or get signed or anything like that. It was a place to be seen, it was a place to be recognized, and potentially pick up a record label. Then it slowly kind of morphed into the movie scene. And then it morphed into the tech scene. And in about 2012, 2013, that's when you started to see the explosion of tech kind of coming on board for South by Southwest. And it got so popular in 2012 that in 2013, it like headlined South by Southwest. And there was a lot of features for startup companies and softwares and whatever. The reason I mention this is that that's when you see the actual first Smiley Face Killer victim pop up in the lake. And so you start to see it kind of happen throughout. After COVID, and that was another thing, the last victim right before COVID was in 2019. And that was the one that survived. And apparently he was gone for 60 hours. And this is what is alleged. I don't know. I've never interviewed him or spoken to him. I'm just kind of repeating what I've read. He was supposedly gone for 60 hours. And when he was recovered, they said, oh, he had been there forever. Yet he was dropped under a specific bridge, or he was found under a specific bridge. And if he had been there for 60 hours, then he should have had some evidence of guano, which is the bat droppings, right? That those bats are notorious to live under that particular bridge. Yet he didn't have any evidence of that. So when they did find him, apparently he had like over $100,000 of medical bills for the damage that he sustained or whatever. So that was in 2019. And then all of the bodies turning up in Lady Bird stopped. You didn't see anything until 2022. Almost like it took a hiatus, or like it took a break with COVID or something like that. I don't know. It was just really odd.
It's hard to do your killings when you're 6 foot apart, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah. But I think another thing was that is when you saw the huge move of Silicon Valley over to Austin. And then that's when all the bodies started, like the uptick in bodies just skyrocketed. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not saying that it is that, but the correlation is there.
You know what? I did want to just throw in real quick, if any of these societies or anything are like maybe being used to do certain jobs or whatever, just from my experience, and I know most other societies all kind of did the same thing. When I was in the OTO, they crumbled with the CDC. So, I mean, they were closed for a long time. So, I mean, those things kind of took a break as well. So that is interesting.
Yeah, I just find that interesting with the tech, the tech industry. And then you had said, voice to skull. I mean, we know that that's a micropulse technology weapon that's designed to subdue people, animals too, but a weapon nonetheless. But it's curious to me, because we look at, if we were to just take a pause and we look at somebody, say Jack Parsons and his association with the military industrial complex when it comes to rockets and weapons and building machines to go to the to the stars or whatever, and then he dying in his garage in an explosion. I mean, he's a master. He knows exactly what he's doing with fuel mixtures. People don't just accidentally blow themselves up in a garage. And then I bring that up because it's the same with, if we look back at our 2008 victim, and all the mystery surrounding this individual and whatever it was with his background. Well, the duct tape part's kind of weird to me because none of them since in this situation have been found in a similar way. They haven't been found bound with duct tape, but they have been found in such a way that it's obviously probably were bound. And, you had said, these tech guys. And so it's curious to me, the occult tie-in with technology and occultism, or working with what we have and, maybe some kind of otherworldly force or entity or something like that. And then why a sacrifice?
Right. And an actual, and I think, Nick, you said this perfectly, it was a worthy sacrifice, the sacrifice of these men. These are high quality men. These weren't just any guy. You're not just, shedding the blood of any man. You're shedding the blood of actual high ranking, intelligent people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I do question, not to get too far out there, but you could even just really knock the person off and kind of harvest them, really. I do think you could, you really just wanted them now for their mind, and hopefully maybe in a few years you can create something that you can manipulate and control. That was as smart as that genius was.
Right, because you said you were wondering if they were after genetics or something.
Yeah, because I only because I didn't get into it with this, and honestly, it wasn't until after we put this out, somebody had approached me because he knew about the Rotary Club, us mentioning them recently. They reached out, and it was an ex-Mormon person who kind of has an issue with the church. So they've been kind of looking at them and stumbled across some wild stuff. It'll eventually be dropping in probably a month on my show. Really interesting. But this guy basically showed us proof that the CIA and the Rotary Club are basically using the church of the LDS church now for an operation. And he was showing all these major Mormons, he's cross-referencing in this Rotary Club, that Rotary Club. And I was like, yo, what the hell? So now, my opinion, I think they're very big into eugenics. So now I'm wondering, and when you get into tech, not to spoil it, kind of where it goes with us, but in high tech, I would even consider Elon Musk, I know this is going to sound weird, a little bit on more of a Mormon side of occultism or spirituality. So now to even bring up Mormons again because of the Rotary Club, who knows with the eugenics, if you want to start throwing eugenics in there. Because in my opinion, they are big on that. And then again, we're talking about best friends in Scientology, eugenics. You know what I'm saying? So.
And you have another tie-in to CIA with tech, in that I believe 4 of the bodies found in Ladybird Lake was over by Longhorn Dam, Pleasant Valley area. When they say Pleasant Valley Road, that's Longhorn Dam, that's all that area. That's almost adjacent to where Temple Estate used to be. Right across the street, literally right across the street from Longhorn Dam, is the Oracle Corporation. And if you know anything about Oracle, if you go into its back history, Larry Ellison, along with some other people, started Oracle. And Ellison, yeah, he was part of an actual corporation that started back in 1977 that basically drew its name from a CIA-funded project with the code name Oracle, Project Oracle. And it was actually the first project that was ever funded by In-Q-Tel, and it was a massive storage system that the CIA could draw information from. The thing about with Oracle is that it is a mass storage system to where they have pitched most of their software to DoD and to the intelligence, to where they are actually trying to develop the actual database for them. And I believe Oracle has been in and out of the news for spying and tracking customers or people that have never given consent to it. If you look them up real quick, you'll see that they've been kind of sued many times for things like this. And so you start to think, okay, they're tracking people, they're surveilling people. Their location is right across the dam from people who have, disappeared and then have been found in this weird way. And then you hear that Larry Ellison has mentioned certain things about having occultism at his philosophy, so to speak. And then you hear how Oracle is now looking at Nashville to move and headquarter its areas. And all of a sudden you start to see bodies popping up in Nashville. So to me, it's kind of like, man, y'all are not making this easy at all. So for me to kind of just say, and again, it's a little bit of, assumptions here, right? But when you start looking at what Oracle does, what their research is, it almost lends like that if they are taking these individuals and they are highly intelligent, and you see that some of their autopsies revealed that there is actual protrusions of the brain or the skull or actual, puncture wounds into that area, you almost have to kind of question what is it that they're doing when they're being held. So
yeah, what are they tied into?
Right, and I'm not saying all of them are doing that. I'm not saying that this is exactly what's happening, but I mean, until something comes out for concrete evidence, everything's a guess.
Yeah, these are all, like you said, you would name off more MOs that would occur within connectivity between those that are found and dead and so on and so forth. Yeah, and then the Temple of Set, that's Michael Aquino. And they're a breakaway from LaVey's Church of Satan, and they are more in the theistic sense. They're not atheistic like many of the modern Church of Satans try to be. And so they have some kind of sense of deity, it would seem. Satan's real name being Set, I guess. But the other thing so we were talking about, like eugenics, right? This is something that's kind of an interesting thing to me with eugenics, is looking for some kind of gene that may be ancient, may have been something in like the Christian fringe world. There's people who are believe they're looking for the Nephilim gene, they call it, and they're looking for basically these who are descendant, some in sense way biologically from the individuals who were once had bodies. So they're disembodied spirits now. So we call them like the unclean spirits or the bastard spirits or whatever. But basically, their genetic continued after the flood. So they weren't all wiped out, because we have, the story of like Goliath, for example, and he's a giant. You have his brothers, the sons of Gath, and somehow, some way, there's a belief that you can reacquire the power that the Nephilim had, and the desire is to find some kind of genetic key or a genetic code or something that seems to fit, in this particular desire, because it's like they're after, the idea that they're redheaded, or they are redhead gene recessive, and then there's all these other traits, and you start looking at some of the traits or the mannerisms or the behaviors that these entities behaved in, and you start looking at, sacrificing of humans. What's the one that's popular? The adrenochrome, and the use of using blood in ritual. And it's like these killings aren't the same as, say, Jack the Ripper. Some people believe that Jack the Ripper's killings were related to a secret society, maybe like Masonic or something, but they were specific organs removed, or they were dismembered in certain ways. These bodies are not dismembered, like you said, but there's like, what was that? GHB was, obviously used or found in their systems. And we said what, benzos too. I mean, methamphetamine and bennies.
It was, and it was a methamphetamine and a Benadryl, like a Benadryl derivative, like a antihistamine.
Yeah. And then, there's mind space. I mean, these, it's really interesting to me that what the aim is you take somebody who's incredibly brain smart, definitely geniuses, and, Einstein's really in their fields, and then you make them, kind of dumb.
That's
in a moment.
That's actually a really good way to look at it.
I mean, to be honest, what an antihistamine and a methamphetamine does to the human brain, I mean, it makes you dumb, quite honestly. I mean, it's called dope for a reason.
That's interesting. And what we know about the bodies recovered is what is only revealed to us. And when the actual autopsies are graciously given to the public or to certain people, that is only when we do know. Now, but again, we're not the MEs looking at this. So you can easily claim, and this was a whole nother thing, you can easily claim there's a spleen there when there hasn't been a spleen, which is one of the cases with the MEs that used to work in Austin, that moved to Lubbock, and got in trouble for falsifying autopsies. So it almost makes you wonder, was he falsifying autopsies in Austin while he was there too? Because he claimed there was a spleen in one guy, and his brother said, wait, there can't be a spleen because he had a splenectomy 10 years ago. So where is the spleen that he's claiming is there? So you immediately start to question falsification of documentation for these autopsies. So when you say, with Jack the Ripper, he was removing organs, how do we know that the organs haven't been removed? We don't know. And I'm not saying that it is, but we don't know. And I mean, we've asked this question.
Even if it was to the point to where, as crazy as it sounds, I think to an occultist, sometimes it's worth it for them just to know what the inside of somebody looks like. They could really be just something worth it.
There's oracles associated with innards.
I know, but it's like, how are you going to know what somebody's brain or eyeballs look like unless you have them to cut open to look at? Or, the inside of somebody, how are you going to know what certain organs and veins look like unless you see it? You know what I'm saying? I know that's crazy, but I do think that has happened.
There's this guy, this quote, G.K. Chesterton made this comment about that, one elephant having a trunk is odd, but all elephants having trunks looks like a plot. And so when we start looking at all of these cases, it's kind of like there's something more going on than meets the eye, and it's worth the investigation. And we're just left scratching our heads, and we are talking about probabilities, possibilities, but we're able to put connections together because there are connections that are being drawn in all the cases, no matter if they're happening in Austin, Texas, or like you said, in Nashville, Tennessee, or in New York, or anywhere else in the world.
You know what? There was something that we found, something that I do. So now we're getting into it now, but something I did want to bring up that is a part of why I think it's like really interesting to check out the series as well, besides the work that Lisa did. When I started looking into certain things, I did find that really just to not have to go through everybody, but just to kind of just sum it up, when you kind of start looking at the police over there, they actually started having, like, you'll start seeing ties to like the Rotary Club. They might have donated, they might have spoke there, the Rotary Club, maybe it came to them. You start seeing like a lot of Rotary Club popping up, all these chiefs, people that were chiefs during all these years with these drownings. There's been a few of them. All of them all have their own companies, and they all seem to, like, one of them I found interesting has their own, like, they're on a gun range, 33 Shooting Club Road. Just interesting like that. It's called the Born, what is that called again? The Born Shooting Club. It's just really weird. Joseph J. Kahn had that, and it's at 33 Shooting Club Road. But all of them have like other companies where they're hiring like ex-cops, and like some of their kind of like their sites are very vague, and it's very interesting if you were to go like look into like the companies they have. But like, again, there is ties to the Rotary Club, and then there is a Rotary Club out there, and it's probably like half a mile walk basically down the road from the Lions Club. Now the Lions Club you start seeing kind of popping up with the people who are associated with the entertainment in the bars. And you even see some of the people that like are associated with the bars, like even like promoting like, you know, the Lions Club, like on like Facebook and stuff. So like, and like the reason I want to bring them up, well, first off, they're both like Masonic. I do find it interesting in this situation. They are actually both very close to each other. I do suspect, you know, and this kind of has a little bit of a reason why I do question the Lions Club a little bit too, besides the fact that these bar owners that are like doing shady shit. I mean, one of the bar owners that is associated with one of these people dying kind of or being drugged, more than likely. Like they got busted like having an illegal Hummer. You know what I'm saying? Like driving around Austin, Texas with like bulletproof Hummer. You know what I'm saying? So like they're already doing like wild, weird, and just think they can get away with whatever. So like who, you know, but so like you see them with the Lions Club, and one thing I just do find weird too, I don't know if you follow like true crime that much, the Idaho 4. I find that to be a very weird suspect case, and the ME was associated with the Lions Club. And I just like kind of found that weird because that is another Masonic order. And I think that there is something very shady with that whole case. But to get back to it, the one thing that I find interesting, and if like you want to start thinking about maybe how bodies can start just showing up out of the blue, because that is another thing that I think is very interesting with a lot of these cases is like these people, first off, they disappear out of the blue and then they just seem to show up like nobody saw anything and just, wow, there's a body. The Rotary Club, I mean, do you even know what the Rotary Club is? Well, I mean, the emblem is a wheels, like a steering wheel to a ship. They have boats. And if you start looking at Lady Bird Lake and start looking at some of the areas of it, in my opinion, I think if you start looking at it, you also realize that there's a golf club and then a big forest kind of area that will actually probably knock off about like half of your visual. Like if you were to dump a body there and then let the stream do the rest, or that dam that you have to worry about even seeing you. And now if you're using a boat that's normally expected to be seen in the water, does anybody even think anything like, oh, what are they dumping a body out there? But I mean, I know that's like kind of like people would have to really go back and watch the series. It's like, you know, a few episodes long. I do spend a lot of time showing you like all the connections that I'm talking about. But yeah, I do suspect that there might be something up with that, believe it or not. I mean, one thing, I mean, not to get like too conspiratorial, but like when I started looking into the Rotary Club, I was like, what's the odds the Rotary Club was involved with sanding Gilgo Beach? They are. You know, it's like now that's another area where tons of dead people are popping up, somewhere that they're associated with sanding. You know what I'm saying? Well, they're being found in the sands, in the dunes. Like it's, I don't know, it's weird now. I'm like, what's up with this Rotary Club and dead people popping up in water?
Well, I mean, you know, in Nevada, you know, the big lake out there, they've been, you know, because the water's drying up. What is that one? Oh, yeah, Lake Mead's all drying up, and they're starting to find, you know, bodies in that. But they're usually disposed of in stuff, and we all know that that's probably mob killings. I mean, it's just obvious, right? Yeah, and it's a convenience. But these are different. These are different. This isn't like, hey, I'm gonna, you know, knock you off and throw you into the, you know, into the water over here. I'm, you know, throw you in the lake or whatever. This is death and then water. And, you know, occult wise, water's been associated with the abyss for millennia. And so, I mean, it's Abyssos. It's just dropping them off to, you know, when I was looking at Temple Set for a second, I thought that was like Kenneth Grant's, you know, Lovecraftian thing. And so I was like, okay, well, that, you know, that would work. But I was like, oh, wait, no, this is Church of Satan. So
yeah, that's true.
It's a little bit different, but it's still, I mean, the abyss, you know,
I think it's definitely a multi-purpose situation. I think that the water itself cleanses, you know, and would cleanse any evidence of malfeasance if there is any. on there. And Nick said this one time, and I thought it was really great. Who's to say that these different types? I mean, who's to say that these men are victims of different types of killings, like different types of groups or entities acquiring the same type of MO, and acquiring the type of guy or victim and using the same MO to dispose of the body, because everybody is just looking at it as an accidental drowning. Everybody's looking at it as he got drunk, drowned, end of story. No one's looking into it. So now it has become this disposable methodology for different groups. Go ahead.
I mean, even if you think about it, like, I mean, unless you want to get like Dahmer, or whoever the dude was, where he's putting people in like tanks or like vat stuff to try to turn them into a liquid. Like, if you want to get rid of a body and like get rid of like a lot of evidence, like unless you want to like probably light it on fire at that point, which is going to create a scene, throwing them in water, like even when cops get that, they automatically know.
No, just that. I mean, I think that. And I think we've been asked this on some of the comments, so I want to make sure that I say it. I don't think it's just one entity. I don't think it's only tech. I don't think that it's only one whatever. I do think that it's a multifaceted group syndicate to where, that many entities are involved. It's not maybe just secret societies. It's not just tech. It's not. And we've even talked about cartels, that they could be the actual arm of how this is acquired and done away with. I mean, cartel activity and cartel presence is huge in Austin. And we kind of go into how like Austin is actually a pivot point for them because of I-35. You easily, connect the border, Laredo, to Austin, and then you could either go to California, Florida, Chicago, or New York, right from Austin. And it's a hub. It's the best hub. And it has been said that some of cartel leaders live in Austin because of how small town it feels. You have still like a great, eclecticness to it. And then you have all the amenities of being wealthy or whatever. And then now you sit at a major pivot point. So.
Yeah, that is curious. That is a curious point. I mean, and then like, Nick had said, the MEs, medical examiners, are a specific spot usually within the police agencies, because it's the investigative arm. This is part of the detective investigative arm of any kind of police agency is the ME in this case, and that means they are somebody who's either involved in a club or whatever, and evidence is gone because it's they've been washed in the water. But at the end of the day, it's like these guys have had one beer, one drink, and they're stumbling out of the bar and falling into water they can stand up in.
Another like weird thing too, that's like, there's like so many things that like start making me like, over the last few years that like I've noticed just weird connections. But like we've even covered me, Lisa, and Teresa. We did 2 shows, and I think there were like 50 or like maybe 50 something each show. We showed too how like we found, like I noticed it from filming different Masonic lodges around where I live. There's like at the corner or like walking distance, there's always a funeral home. Some of them even match the names of the temples, the lodges. And it's like, yo, what is, and like, if there really is something behind that, which after 100 lodges, I'm sorry, I think there is, but you're still open to, denial on that one. If there is a connection between them and funeral homes, now you got even a spot to even preserve a body. Oh, I mean, this just opens up so many things of like, well, where'd they go for a few days? There you go.
BT, one more thing, and you both said something that I forgot to mention. Every time they asked for footage from the bar, either it was mistakenly erased, or that point in time of the film, of the footage, somehow got corrupted, somehow got deleted, or it takes months before the family could even get their hands on it, and it's all kinds of blurry, or it's not pointed in the right direction. Sometimes these detectives will scan, and this has been the case with a few, they'll scan the wrong day of the video footage of the actual bar. And so you're just like, what is this, amateur day? I mean, what are we doing here? And the other thing that that I think also should be mentioned is that some of the families have claimed that they are encouraged by city officials to quickly cremate the body,
Right. Instead, it is.
which is peculiar.
Well, not only that, but it's like, yeah, but it's like,
You can't come back.
yeah, you can't dig the body up.
You can't tell if any organs are missing.
Mortem examination. You can't disinter them and look at them again. And that is an interesting thing, because there's a lot of people out there that would rather bury their beloved than cremate them anyways.
Yeah. Another thing I did want to just add real quick, just so people can, if they want to check it out. And when we cover it, I also do show how the business aspect and the entertainment aspect and even the restaurants out in that Austin area pretty much are all owned by a handful of people. When you start looking at the businesses, you just start seeing you got one dude that ends up owning 3 or 4 or 5, and it's after a while, it's only so many people that really own everything out there. You kind of even have in my opinion, I had even said, if it really is like that, those people do dictate a lot down there, because that is a lot of money in business those places are bringing in. So it's is one hand going to wash the other? Or, I mean, seriously, you could even be you do arrest everybody and shut down business 2 years in Austin. All the bars, all this music, you're going to arrest everybody? What are you going to do?
And to his, yeah, exactly. And to his point about if you do a quick search on some of these bars, I mean, just Reddit. I know everybody's kind of, about Reddit, but let's just say you go on Reddit and you search, for this one particular bar that this one victim was found. You will literally scroll and scroll and scroll of all these people claiming to have gotten drugged, to have gotten roofied, to have left only of drinking a little bit and somehow felt off and had to leave, or were hospitalized, or went to the emergency. That's not a coincidence.
There was a newspaper article that I came across when I was trying to look for other drug cases out there. Yo, this is wild. Some kid got they drugged him, and he ended up waking up and realizing that they basically maxed out his cards and took his money or whatever was on his phone and transferred it. And eventually he found out where it all went to. And it went to some other kid. And then I think eventually the cops got in touch with him and then realized he already went to the cops and had the same issue where that kid. So basically this is what happened. These 2 kids were getting robbed at the same time. Somebody robbed one kid, transferred his money to the other kid's phone, and then transferred that money somewhere else as they robbed him. So you literally had 2 people robbed. Was this choreographed? At the same time. I was yo, that is insane. Going through all that just for a few grand.
All right, where can people find you again? Anything else you want to say? I'll make sure to put your guys' shows in the show notes so people can click them.
No, thank you so much for inviting us on to talk about this. It's obviously near and dear to my heart, and so I enjoy it, kind of putting the information back out there for people to kind of look for themselves. And don't take my word for it. Please look into it. Talk to people about it. The more people are aware, the more people are talking about it, I think is probably the best course of action. But yeah, if you'd like to get a hold of me or want to follow me, I'm on Twitter for Lisa Solis, and on Instagram, on Twitter, Solis Lisa, and then on Instagram, Lisa Solis.
Yeah, the Occult Rejects. I do forget about it only because the show's kind of a little bit on a hiatus. Maybe it's once a month or once every other month. But I am, also co-host of the Spiritual Gangsters, which Teresa does have. And then we got the Occult Rejects, which Lisa is co-host of, and a few other people we have jumping on oftenly. And that is on BitChute, Rumble, YouTube, and all major podcasts. And we also do have, I always forget to mention it, occultresearchinstitute.org. You can check that out. A whole bunch of stuff in there. It's really more of blog style, and if you're into reading and you don't mind actually just reading informative stuff and information, there's tons and tons on there. So definitely check that out. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. This is a free podcast based upon the value for value model. If you find value in this, or any episode, you can return that value by liking the show, subscribing to this channel, leaving a review, or sharing with a friend on your social media accounts. You can also donate on my website. Thank you again. This is BT for Truth and Shadow Podcast. You are the light in the darkness.